Welcome, everyone, to another Top 5 here at MacGuffinPodcast.com. I am Brandi.
And I'm Allen.
And today we will be talking about a genre called film noir.
It's a genre that's been, influenced a lot, but I don't think many people really know film noir films.
Film noir films. We're talking about the real deal. We're talking about movies made 40s and 50s, lower budget, all about crimes and misdemeanors and
lots of fedoras, lots of cigarettes, lots of femme fatales,
lots of shadows from Venetian blinds. The good stuff.
Yeah,
the good stuff. All right. So my number 5 is a movie from 1948, and it is called The Naked City, which is kind of actually a little bit weird in the world of film noir, because it's not as dark and shady as a lot of these movies are. Like, it's a little bit more bright and daylight, but it's basically just the story of some cops, and they just kind of get into some adventures, It's almost kind of done documentary style in bits of it, which is, again, a little bit weird for this genre, but, by 1948, people are starting to experiment with this new thing that they're coming up with. Which they didn't call film noir back in the day.
Yeah,
that
I
was
don't
made
think they
up.
knew.
That was made up later. They didn't even know what awesomeness they were doing.
Yeah,
they were just being creative. But The Naked City, I watched this in a film class in college, and it's a really interesting film.
Who directed it?
Jules Dessin. I don't know. I don't really know if you pronounce that the French way or the American way.
Right. Okay.
So not somebody super well known, but definitely a film worth checking out.
Cool. All right. My number 5 film is from 1956. It was written and directed by Stanley Kubrick, and it's called The Killing. When you think of Stanley Kubrick, you normally think of, the experimental, like almost abstract films of his later career. So it's pretty interesting to see him tackle a straight genre, film early in his career.
I've not seen it.
Yeah, it stars Sterling Hayden, who actually went on to be the crazy general in Dr. Strangelove.
Yes.
It's about these group of guys who plot a heist of a racetrack, and they pull it off perfect, right? But of course, in film noir, there's always a double cross, and one of the guys there has a wife who realizes that what their plan is, and she and her lover decide to jump into the mix and mess things up. So yeah, it's a really cool film by one of the masters of cinema. So it's definitely worth checking out. Yep.
All right. My next one stars one of the greats of Hollywood, and she actually won an Oscar for this film. From 1945, from director Michael Curtiz, is Mildred Pierce, starring Joan Crawford.
Okay.
Have you seen this one?
I have not.
It's great. You gotta watch it.
Okay.
Basically, she's jilted by her husband, and she decides, I don't need you. I'm going to make it on my own. I'm going to become a successful businesswoman. But she's got this shrew of a daughter who she's always just trying to impress. Like, everything in her life is just to please her daughter and elevate her daughter. And her daughter is just this conniving little... Ugh, she's awful. It's a really interesting conflict because you don't really see that kind of relationship in films very much. And... they're doing a remake of it on HBO starring Kate Winslet.
Oh,
That's
really?
going to be a miniseries, and I can't wait. Like, every time I see the commercial for it, I get really, really excited because it's a great story. I've not read the book that it's based on, and Joan Crawford's performance in this is just phenomenal. I mean, I think a lot of people remember her from campy portrayals of her later on, and forget that she was an amazing actress. She really was, no matter how she was in real life. So. You've never seen Mildred Pierce. Don't let that boring title keep you from it, because
that's a grabber.
It's a great movie. It's a great movie.
Very cool. All right. My number 4 film is from 1955, and it's actually a French film. It's directed by Jules Dessin, and it's called Rififi. This director is sort of a forgotten guy. He's done a lot of good stuff, especially in terms of film noir. He did Brute Force, Night in the City, Naked City, and Thieves Highway.
I didn't realize Night in the City. Was
Yeah,
good.
so this guy, you know, he's done some good stuff. Rafifi was one of the films that he directed after he was sort of blacklisted from Hollywood. And
Blacklist.
it actually turned out to be one of his best, in my opinion. Again, just like The Killing, it's about a couple guys that plot a robbery. This time it's of a jewel store. The cool thing about this is that the scene where they actually do the robbery takes about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. There's absolutely no dialogue throughout that entire scene, but it is so suspenseful, you know, just the fact that they're trying to drill into the safe and make sure no one catches them. It's really incredible. And then, of course, there's the second half of the story where things go wrong, as
after
always.
the fact.
So,
Yeah,
it's definitely something worth checking out. So.
Yeah. Speaking of things going wrong after the fact, get a lot of that happening in this film. 1944, Billy Wilder, Double Indemnity, which I think maybe along with the Maltese Falcon is what people sort of think of instantly when you bring up film noir. Fred MacMurray, Barbara Stanwyck are just great.
Yep.
You know, he's an insurance agent. She wants to get rid of her husband. They come up with a scheme to push him off the back of a train, in which case it's one of these special sorts of accidents where they're going to get paid double.
Yep.
Too bad Edward G. Robinson is real suspicious of the details of this case. Yeah. And things do not go off
as intended.
Exactly.
And you know, like from the very beginning, like this is not going to work out. You know? So it's definitely a cool movie.
Don't listen to Phyllis, because it's not gonna happen.
Don't listen to Phyllis. Yeah, absolutely.
Great movie.
So my number 3 film is from 1949. It's directed by Carol Reed. I think it's considered one of not only the greatest film noirs, but also one of the greatest films of all time. It is The Third Man.
That's a really good pick, and I didn't even think of it. I'm just embarrassed I didn't think of it.
Joseph Cotton as Holly Martins, who comes to Vienna because he was invited by his good friend Harry Lime, played by Orson Welles.
And then he gets there and
realizes that, hey,
where's Harry?
He's dead. So he's spending the entire time trying to figure out exactly what happened. What happened to his friend and everything like that, only to realize in one of the most incredible introduction scenes ever.
What if people haven't seen it?
I'm not going to mention it, but it is one of the most incredible introduction scenes ever. Every time someone opens a window, I just look to see if someone's around. Great dialogue, great music. You know, the Ferris wheel scene. Incredible, right?
Yes, and the ending shot with her just walking. Oh,
the girl walking, it's so incredible. It's so something that is required.
The chase through the sewer ways.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yes.
The hands through the grate. I mean, God, that's a good movie.
I just want to watch it again.
Yeah, I want to watch it right now.
There you go.
All right. Well, my number 2 is from 1944, starring Jean Tierney, who was quite a beautiful actress back in the day, directed by Otto Preminger, and that is Laura.
Laura, yeah.
Have you seen Laura?
I have. It's been a while since I've seen it, though. Yeah.
You know, this is another one that has a great reveal in the middle of it, but basically Jean Tierney is one of these characters where all the men are sort of vaguely obsessed with her, and then she dies, and it's kind of the aftermath of what happens to everyone once Laura has met her demise. I also don't want to give away too much. I mean, which is ridiculous talking about a movie from 1944. But I know you haven't seen it, and it's so good. You really should go back and watch it, because it's got and it's one of these that has just such great dialogue, because all the characters are vaguely contemptuous of each other and of themselves too. So it's just dissing on each other back and forth in that eloquent way that people did when they had screenwriters in the 40s writing their lives.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen that film, but I definitely think I'll revisit it. So okay,
great.
Let's move on to my number 2. My number 2 film is from 1958. I think it's considered by many to be one of the last real film noirs. Directed by Orson Welles, it is Touch of Evil. So you have Charlton Heston, who's playing a Mexican.
No.
So that's kind of interesting. Police officer. There's an explosion. Some Americans are killed at the border. But they come to realize that the bomb was planted in Mexico. So Charlton Heston's trying to figure out, solve this mystery of who planted the bomb. Orson Welles is Captain Hank Quinlan, this sort of, right when you look at him, something's bad. He's not a straight arrow in this film. And it's this story about these two guys that are butting heads, really interesting history with this film in the way that it was chopped up when it was first released, and Orson Welles really was really adamant about
bad luck with that kind of stuff, didn't he? He wrote like a 50-page essay about putting the film back together and everything like that. It's really an interesting film that's gone through dozens of manipulations or whatever. So, but it is great. The final product, the Orson Welles' vision, was amazing. So, okay.
Yep.
Well, my number one is a movie that's a little bit sort of a B movie among B movies, but God, I love it. And they showed it I think 2 years ago at the Noir Fest that they do at SIF Cinema, and I dragged a bunch of people to see it, and they were like, I've never heard of this movie, blah, blah, blah. Everyone loved it just as much as I loved it. And that is from 1950 and is Gun Crazy. Have you ever heard of this film?
I have heard of this film, actually, and I do plan on watching it. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. It is
so good. It is like this firecracker of Peggy Cummins plays Annie Laurie Starr, who is working in this carnival as a sharpshooter. She's a great shot. And of course, in comes this guy, Bart, who's also a great shot, and they have this shots. Contest. She's supposed to hustle someone in the audience, and she meets her match, and they fall in love. And then she convinces him that maybe they should go on a bit of a crime spree.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
And this great sequence where they rob a bank, but you can tell that they had no money for a bank robbery scene. So the entire scene, it's all one shot, but it's inside the getaway car. And you can hear what's going on inside the bank, but you're outside, and you can see the people on the street sort of being like,
what's going on?
What's going on in there? And they're probably people who didn't even know a movie was being shot.
Nice.
So,
awesome.
Great final sequence. It's one of my favorite movies, period. I absolutely love it. So
nice. Cool.
If you have any interest whatsoever in film noir, definitely check out Gun Crazy.
All right, excellent. Okay, so moving on to my number one. My number one film noir is from 1944. It's actually a film that you've already mentioned. It is Double Indemnity.
Deserves to be on both lists.
In my opinion, this is the quintessential film noir
Absolutely,
film.
With the narration.
Billy
and
Wilder,
else,
one of my favorite all-time directors. Written by Billy Wilder and Raymond Chandler, who's pretty big in film noir world also.
That's just such a good combo.
Hardball kind of guy. It's interesting that the lead character, Fred McMurray, playing Walter Neff, from what I understand, he was more of a comedy kind of a guy, right? Before this,
was he in the original Flubber?
Something like that, But he played, Walter Neff so well, with the dialogue and having this hard exterior and everything like that. Barbara Stanwyck, wow, right? The first moment you see her, she's in a towel, and this is during the time where you don't do that sort of thing, right? In films like this and Lady Eve, it's just wow,
she's amazing.
Smoking.
And if you ever see any of her stuff, her early movies that are pre-code, those are crazy. Those are pretty crazy too. Before they had to get a little bit
right. So
more conservative.
Yeah, Double Indemnity, one of the greatest films of all time. I wish I had more time to talk about it, but it's up there, my number one. So
yeah, it's great. All right, this has been another Top 5 here at MacGuffin Podcast. You can see many more Top 5s and many articles, reviews, interviews, podcasts with the usual suspects, Spencer and John, at the websites.
Bye.